Hello friends, my name is Sande and we are going to present a message entitled Saved by Hope. It is a concept that it can be foreign to many people, if not in a theoretical sense, because some of you might actually understand that that is the way it ought to be. For sure, in the practical way for many people are not practicing the concept of being saved by hope. Now, when we're talking about salvation, the book of Ephesians chapter 2 verse 8 tells us that we are saved by grace. Grace meaning an unmerited favor that God has bestowed upon us to save us, not because we have deserved that salvation, not because of all the nice little things that we do and the successful marriage or the successful diet or the successful dress reform or whatever it is that we base in ourselves in, but rather because He loves us and He has bestowed upon us a gift. It is up to us just to accept it. That's the work of humanity, to accept the gift of God and not run away from that gift. So if we are saved by grace, how is it that the title of this message is Saved by Hope? Well, because in the book of Romans, chapter 8 and verse 24, he actually tells us also that we are saved by hope. But hope that is seen is not hope. For why does one still hope for what he sees? In other words, when you're hoping for something, it's because that something has not happened yet. You are hoping, but you cannot see in front of you the results. If you could see it, I'm hoping to be here today. No, I can see myself in here today. I'm hoping to be in such and such place tomorrow. Why? Because I cannot see it literally now. I cannot see myself there tomorrow. Okay? I'm hoping to have shoes today. No, I'm already wearing the shoes. So hope that can be seen is not hope. So hope is based on the premise that you cannot see it yet. However, you hope to see it one day. And the book of Romans tells us that we are saved by that hope. By that thing that we cannot see with our eyes, but we are hoping for. It will happen. In fact, by which hope we are saved? By the hope of Jesus. On that cross, He could not see your salvation state. In fact, you were not even born. He could perhaps anticipate your hardship and wrong decisions. But He knows the end from the beginning. And in hope, He was envisioning you accepting that gift of salvation. He was hoping that you will accept it. And that's why He let His life down for you, in the hope that you will take it. In something that He could not still yet see, but was desiring for that to happen, that you will be saved, that you will accept His gift. The moment you accepted His gift of salvation, you were saved by His grace, sure, through the hope that He had in you and in your decision. Now, there are many experiments that have been done over the years. I'm going to just share one of them. There are many of these type of experiments. A scientist has two plants, identical plants, exposed to the same level of light and fertilizer and water, etc. Same conditions, same age, same type of plant. He will go day after day to one of the plants and he will say to one of the plants the following: "You think you're green? That's not green. You yellow, you're good for nothing, you're not going to grow, you are going to dry out. You disgusting little plant. You're not going anywhere. And then you'll just be filling up the forms every day. They will be feeding both plants at the same time. They will be feeding them with the same conditions, always the same. Then he will go to the other plant and he will say to the other plant, "You're such a beautiful plant. You're little now, but I can see that one day you're going to go high and high and you're going to touch the ceiling. You're going to grow and you're going to have plenty of leaves and you're going to grow so high." And he will take the notes. He will repeat that day after day, day after day. Soon as the experiment started to be taking more time, they started to notice a difference in the growth height. One was growing faster than the other, or one growing slower than the other. They even started noticing changes in the green intensity. And ultimately, as time went by, this one over here turned yellow and died, while the other one kept on growing and growing and growing until it touched the ceiling. He could not see that that was going to happen. In either case, he was actually communicating the hope that he had towards each one of the plants. See, hope can be positive or hope can be negative. You can have a negative hope because that's what you're hoping for, something negative. And if you're hoping for something positive, that will be a positive hope. In both cases, there is hope. Hope exists in the human being. It's been granted by God and is attached to faith. In fact, in the book of Hebrews, it tells us that faith is the evidence of things hoped for. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. The essence, the substance of faith is hope. The mechanism of faith is hope. The evidences of things not yet seen. Now, imagine this. Imagine I just arrived to a little town near my house that has the last stop of the train. And my wife comes there with the car and picks me up from the station. And I say to her, "What's for dinner today?" And she says, "Lasagna." Now, what is my faith based on? Do I have any hope that there will be lasagna in the house? What is the evidence that actually feeds my hope that there will be lasagna in the house? The word of my wife. My wife has said that it will be lasagna. So the evidence of the things hoped for, what are the evidence? My wife's word gives me an evidence that the things that gives me evidence that my hope is not in vain. That I ought to hope for a lasagna to be in the house, rightly so, and have faith that is going to be the case because my wife has spoken and has said to me that there's lasagna in the house. That's where my hope is based, in the evidence of her word. In the same manner, our hope ought to be built in His word. When He actually tells you that He loves you with an everlasting love, what is the evidence that you can actually be sure to hope for a Heavenly Father that is looking forward to embrace you with the embrace of a Father? The fact that He said it. The fact that He does not lie. That is the substance of your faith. Your hope is fed on His word. Now, whatever He says, gives you the motivation, the guidance, the direction of the things that you ought to hope for. Whatever things He says gives you the direction and the direction for you to focus your hope. He says that He does not delight in anyone to perish, but He is looking intensively and is working intensively for the salvation of as many as possible, if it was up to Him, for the salvation of everyone. And I'm saying if it was up to Him because salvation, the gift, is up to Him. But unfortunately, the decision is not entirely up to Him, but rather up to you. However, do you know that He has hope that one day you will accept that gift? If that is my Father's hope, what ought to be my hope? So my hope ought to be that one day you too, as I did, will accept that gift of salvation. That ought to be my hope. So if that ought to be my hope, how am I going to treat you? With what I see in front of me now, or with the means of hope, what I'm hoping to see one day? How am I going to treat you? In the reality of your current state, and let that influence my hope, or in the reality of His faith and His hope for you? Am I going to treat you as a plant that has no hope of salvation, but only hope of destruction? Or am I going to treat you, even though I cannot see it just yet, as a plant that one day is going to embrace the Father, the hug of the Father? Now, it's interesting because in the book of Revelation, God says in chapter 3 that He wants to anoint our eyes with ointment so we can see. We can see what? Why do we need to see? Because in many instances, the Bible outlines the human beings as being blind, short-sighted, and not able to have proper discernment of the situation. They tend to see with the eyes of the reality in front of them. And when you see with the eyes of your reality in front of you, you are not exercising hope. And we are saved by hope. And so is everyone else that will be saved by the hope of Jesus. And if that hope of Jesus has been now manifested through your hope, then He is using you as His channel of salvation. Now, I'll give you an example. In the book of 2 Corinthians, Paul tells us the following. Okay? He says, "For the love of Christ compels us, because we judge thus, that if one died for all, then all died. And He died for all, that those who live should live no longer for themselves, but for Him who died for them and rose again." So Paul is saying that the one that died, Jesus, did not just die for the ones that are Christians. He died for everyone, for all of us. The gift of salvation is there in front of yourself, in front of your feet. It's actually reachable. The kingdom of God and the kingdom of salvation is at your hand, is at your touch, is so near to you, even if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ. Because when He died for all. That means that that gift is placed before you, even if you haven't accepted it yet, in the hope that you would, that you will accept it. And then He says this, for those that have accepted that gift, for the ones that have accepted that gift and that they have responded to the hope that Jesus had towards your salvation, He says the following, "Therefore, from now on, From now on, now that you are saved, now that you actually have fulfilled, you are now a vision fulfilled of the hope of Jesus, even though he couldn't see it moments before that or years before that. He says, from now on, we regard no one according to the flesh. Even though we have known Christ according to the flesh, yet now we know him thus no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. All things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Now, all things are of God, who has reconciled us to himself through Jesus Christ, and has given us the ministry of reconciliation. So let me outline this for you. Because those that have accepted the gift of salvation, have responded, had fulfilled the hope that Jesus had for you, now you ought to see everyone else around you not according to what your flesh or your eyes see them, but rather the way the Spirit sees them. Now notice very, very carefully. When you are saved in Christ, you just been the fulfillment of his hope. But that's just you. There's still many others that Christ is hoping for them to be saved. And from then on, you are commanded not to see everyone according to your flesh, according to what your eyes can see. Don't look at the people according to what you can see, but according to what the Spirit sees. Now, what is the desire of God? Of God? What is his hope? For people to be saved. How is he seeing the people? As potential saved people. Encouraging them to grab hold of that salvation. Motivating them. Showing them that it's going to happen. Because he has hope in them. So how we ought to see them? We ought to see the people around us, not according to what our eyes see them, but according to the hope of Jesus for their salvation. According to hope for them to be safe. Let me illustrate. One day, I was going to take my two daughters to Melbourne, and we were going to go to the Melbourne Museum, and we were going to, it was amazing, the girls just had a good time. They couldn't believe they were going to go with Daddy in the train for 2 hours, and my daughter said, Daddy, can we actually have chips? And I said, yes, you can have chips. Oh man, she ran into the bedroom, said, and spoke with the other sister, oh, Daddy is saying that we can have chips. Now, bear in mind, Daddy is this nutritionist that wants to make sure that everything is healthy and whatever. So it was a very twisting of the arm for me to say you can even have chips. And then the other one came out and said, Daddy, can we have New Zealand ice cream? When we get to the city. I say, yep, New Zealand ice cream. My wife already informed me, that I needed to be more, I needed to make sure that I spoil the children a little bit today. So we arrived to Melbourne, and we were walking through the botanical gardens, and the day was fantastic. The day was glorious. The sun was going through the branches of the trees, and flowers everywhere, and footpaths, and everything was clean and in order, and birds. It was amazing in the botanical gardens, heading towards the museum. And I started talking to the girls about the day that it will be, the day that I cannot see, but the day that I'm hoping to see in heaven, when we walk through the paths of gold and shining green and living green all around us, and flying angels. And my girls caught the vision, and they started they saw like a little pond there, and they said, so it's like if we are in heaven, in that pond will be maybe a shark, and I can actually go into that pond and swim with the shark, and there will be a giraffe around that corner there, And maybe there is a lion over there, but the lions are not going to eat us. That's our hope. The blessed coming of the Lord and the blessed kingdom that He's bestowing upon us. We cannot see it. So the girls were just getting into the momentum. As we were really, really into it, letting ourselves hoping for the things to come, things that we could not see, but hoping for the things to come based on His word. Because He tells us in His word that all those things are real. So then I am allowed to hope for them because He told me about it in His word. That's the evidence of my hope. Now, 3 girls were coming down the hill. And those 3 girls were wearing, do you know what a miniskirt is? All right, well, those girls were wearing a mini skirt. And they must have caught themselves on something because they were missing parts in their t-shirt, both from the bottom and from the top. And I looked at them, and they were coming down the hill, and I said to my girls, now, look at those 3 over there. They're coming down to meet us. What are they wearing? And my girls said to me, oh, Daddy, they're wearing a very short skirt and very tiny top. And I said, where are you looking at? I'm talking about the ones at the top in the hill, the ones that are coming down. They looked at each other and said, yes, Daddy, that's the ones that there's no one else. That's the ones that we're looking at. The ones with the miniskirt and the ones with the short top. I said, I can't see all that. I'm talking about the 3 coming down the hill with white robes and a crown. They looked at each other and they catch the vision. And I said, oh yes, Daddy. We can see them. We can see them. We can see the white robes and we can see the golden crown. And those 3 girls with their golden crown and their robes pass by us. And we smile at them, we say good morning, and it was a beautiful thing. I don't know what on earth happened that day in Melbourne, but from that point onwards, everybody was dressed with white robes and a golden crown. Wherever we went to the museum, everybody was dressed with white robes and a golden crown. We went to get the chips, and the guy that was selling the chips to us was dressed in a with a golden crown and a white robe. The guy at the New Zealand ice cream shop. Also, the people in the train, I don't know what happened. Everybody was dressed like that. And by the way, who told you I was going to present this message? Why are you all dressed with white robes and a golden crown? Why are all the camera crew, dressed with white robes and a golden crown? Who told you I was going to speak about that? Now, friends, if I am wearing a Rolex and very expensive Italian shoes and a Italian suit here and very sophisticated looking young man, and I've got somebody next to me that is just wearing a Casio and secondhand clothes, which one in the social status is at a higher level? Me. Because of the Rolex, because of the suit, because of everything else. I am at a higher level. Indirectly, we even can put a different value in the actual person. If you look at the human history, that's what humans have been doing. They level people up according to their occupation. They level people up according to their skin color. So, if I am dressed with a white robe and a golden crown, and the person next to me is dressed with a white robe and a golden crown, who is higher there? No one. We are equal. And so we are in the eyes of God. we are actually equal. Now, I want you to notice, let's say this person over here has not accepted Jesus Christ, and I had already that golden crown and the white robe. I have already attained it because I responded to his gift and accepted it. Let's say he hasn't yet. And I'm emphasizing the word yet. He hasn't yet. Then upon him, I am exercising hope. I am not looking at what is hanging from his ear. I am not looking at what is piercing his nose. I am not looking at what tattoo he has or what is his status, what is his occupation, how deprived of love he has been, how many wrong decisions he has made. I am not looking at that because I cannot see any longer with the eyes of flesh. I cannot see any longer with what my eyes are saying and are seeing to me. I ought to see that person with the eyes of the Spirit, with the eyes of hope. And I see him with a white robe and a golden crown. And you know what? When I treat him as a child of God already. I am anticipating for his decision. I am already hoping and actively anticipating his decision of salvation, of accepting that gift from God. That's how we ought to treat each other. With hope. There are many people in this world that have no hope, that do not have any hope. And the only way in which they can actually grab hold of salvation, if they don't have hope themselves, is by grabbing hold of the hope that you have in them. They're getting hold of your hope for their salvation. And it reminds me the story of this mother. She had a son that got involved into drugs. That son would come into the house, and sometimes things will disappear from the house because he needed to sell them to get more drugs. And she was praying for her lost son. Until one day, God enlightened her vision. And she decided that there must be a reason why my son is still alive. And that means that God still is providing time and hope that he will actually grab salvation. So she changed completely the way she related to him. She started treating him as someone that is dressed with a crown and a robe. And she started not to get offense or offended by many of the things that he was perpetrating against her and her husband. And many times she will say to him, you know, one day you and I, we are going to walk together through the streets of gold, and Jesus is going to grab my hand and is going to grab your hand. And he will say to Mom, oh Mom, don't talk to me about that, because you know what? God doesn't want me. I've been in very rough places. If you knew what I've done, you will understand what I'm saying. God doesn't want anything to do with me. I wouldn't like anything to do with me either. So just forget about that. I am lost, Mom. That's who I am. You're safe. That's you, Jesus. That's fine. I am lost. But she smiled and used to give him hugs and said, okay, time will tell. Because remember, the gift of salvation is just so near you, always is near you. I know one day you're going to get it. I know one day you're actually going to grab that gift of salvation and you're going to be safe. No, Mom, stop. Look, I know that you're not taking it now, but I know one day you will. I know, I'm sure of that. I've got hope that that's going to be the case. Friends, in this case, it was the case. Years later, that son did not have hope in himself. But he started wondering, is the hope of my mom true? Is what she's hoping for me? She seems so sure. And the assurance and confidence and hope of the mother turned things around for him. He accepted that gift, picked it up, because the salvation is near you. It's so near, at any minute, you just stretch your arm, you can actually grab it. And nowadays, that boy is not a boy anymore, but it is one that has now living with the robe and the crown, not out of hope, but out of the confidence that he has accepted salvation. There was a farmer in New Zealand that at the age of 20 or 21, he left New Zealand to go to Australia. He wanted to make money in a dairy farm, and he did make money. He made his own dairy company, and he made a lot of money. He was a hard worker, though. He was working hard. He grew up in a Christian home, and with two more sisters. But when he left New Zealand, he never went back to God either. He became totally secular. He lived the Aussie lifestyle with the barbecue and the beer and everything else that comes along. He married a secular woman, and he just developed a business and poured his efforts into this business. As years passed, he became more distant from God until his parents died. And he tells the story because he came to my church to share it with us, that when he was there at the funeral, he noticed that the peace and hope that his two sisters had, he lacked. He didn't have that hope. And that started bothering him. And he tells the story how he was actually cutting grass in one of the paddocks, and he wanted to listen to the cricket. And he knew that the ABC radio was, for the cricket, was channel 3. So he just went like that, and he pressed channel 3, and there was a guy speaking. And he had an American accent, and all of a sudden that guy was talking about God. And he said, well, this guy is talking in the ABC, they will cut him off very quickly, the Australia broadcast. They will cut him off very quickly. He's talking about God. But they didn't cut him off. And the reason why they didn't cut him off is because he actually, for some reason in that paddock, he actually grabbed a different channel. And it was a Christian channel. And the person that was speaking there was a guy by the name of Doug Batchelor. And he was actually giving Bible studies. And he was looking forward to go to that paddock and keep on cutting grass and just listening the programs. He had a rough time. Had a rough time personally with his decision to follow the Lord. And he actually became a Christian. He became a Christian, and now is a very dedicated child of God in the state of Victoria. He's actually helping with Faith FM over there and putting new transmitters in the areas. He's an elder in his church, and he's so dedicated, so in love with the Lord. Interesting though, a pastor came to my house, and he told me the following. He used to be a pastor in New Zealand, and he was the pastor of the parents of this man. And he remembered these parents always saying to him, we've got a prodigal son in Australia. We're always praying for him. We have hope that he will be safe. Are you catching this, friends? Mom and Dad never saw that. They actually never saw their son being safe. They died with the hope if they will see their son now, how much he loves the Lord, how much he wants to share his love of salvation with everyone around them, they will be so happy. The parents died in the hope of the salvation of their son, and they never saw it. The only time when they are going to discover all about that is when they are arise in the morning of the resurrection. And God will tell them, hope is not in vain. Hope is the means of salvation. You had hope. Here is your son. How are we treating each other? How are we treating those that we think they are way out in the world? How are we treating our children that are not in Christ today? Are we treating them with hope, or are we already thrown the tower down? David says, in Israel we lived 70 years, and the strongest 80. So imagine that you have a book with 70 or 80 chapters as an average. Where is your son, the one that has gone into the world, the one that doesn't want anything to do with you or with your God? Where is your spouse, the one that abandoned you? How old is she? Is she 56? Well, that's the 56th chapter of that book. Where is your son? Is he 32? Well, that is the 32nd chapter of his book. As an average, though we never know when our book is going to finish, but as an average, we can say between 70 to 80 years, that's the average age. Am I going to write off a person that is on his 33rd chapter just because in that chapter there are things written in that chapter that are so appalling, so disgusting, so awful, when I have no idea if in the last paragraph of the last chapter of that book, God is going to grab hold of the pen and He's going to write, and He accepted my salvation. I had hope that that was going to be the case. We have no idea. I cannot write people off. I can just hope for their salvation. I invite you to share hope for the salvation of those around you. Stop looking at them with your eyes and start looking at them with the golden crown and a white robe. You all look beautiful today with that dress. Thank you for your attention, and may God bless you.